Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera TV sana sini bersama saya Kongres Hujan. Kita mulakan dengan perkembangan.
Good morning, everyone. I request everyone to kindly settle down. We'll start with the summit soon. I request everyone to please settle down on the seats provided. Can everyone standing upstairs can please settle down so that we can start? Good morning, everyone. It's truly wonderful to see this room full of leaders, change makers, thinkers, and doers from across the Commonwealth and ASEAN. On behalf of the entire team, I, Sonia Deshmukh, welcome you to the Commonwealth ASEAN Summit 2025. Today, we gathered not simply because we were invited, but because each person in this room represents influence, experience, and possibility. Over the course of this day, we will explore themes that are not theoretical, they are immediate, urgent, and real. Education, which determines who has access to opportunity. Technology, which defines the pace and character of our development. Trade and finance, which shape economic ability and social mobility. Environmental action, which is now a necessity, not a choice. And culture, the foundation of identity, belonging, and community strength. These are not topics that stand alone. They are deeply interconnected. How we teach influences how we innovate. How we innovate influences how we grow. How we grow shapes what we value. And today, we value determines how we protect the world and the people around us. Today, I want us to approach the session with three intentions. First, listen to understand, not to respond. Second, disagree with respect because progress is not built on echo chambers. And third, leave with commitments, not just notes. If today ends with an applause and photographs alone, then we have failed the purpose of our gathering. But if today inspires one collaboration, one joint initiative, or one shared effort, then the summit has done its job. We all represent nations and organizations shaped by different histories, different realities, and different priorities. Yet, we share something far more powerful, that is a common future. A future that will either design intentionally or inherit by default. And because of that, today matters. So welcome not just to a summit, but to a shared responsibility. And with that, let's begin our today's program. To formally open the summit, I invite the Project Director of Commonwealth Asean Summit 2025, Mr. Pashminder Paul Singh, on the stage.
Mic test. Good morning, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Tak cukup kuat. Kuat sikit. Boleh dengar tak? Alright. I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, excellencies, government representatives, partners, colleagues, and friends. A very good morning and welcome to the Commonwealth Asean Summit 2025. Standing here today fills me with deep gratitude and pride. This summit is not just an event. It's a journey that began with a vision to bridge two of the most vibrant regional communities in the world, the Commonwealth and ASEAN. When the first idea was first conceived under the Commonwealth Youth Innovation Hub, many of us asked, can we really connect 56 Commonwealth nations and 10 ASEAN members under one platform? The answer, at first, we are being seen many no. But today is different. It's a yes. So this summit actually did not appear overnight. It was born through many dialogue, engagement, and dedication. Our organizing team did not appear and compromise of youth leaders, policy experts, and mentors that work tirelessly across time zone. I have my head of media. She is Zainab, and she is from Pakistan. And I have also my head of speaker management. She is Sonia, our MC, all the way from India. And we used to have meetings, sometimes midnight in Kuala Lumpur, but over there it's like 2-3 hours different. It's quite a challenge. And today, the dream has come true. All our hard work has paid off. And from here on, they face many challenges, of course. Logistical hurdles, funding uncertainties, last-minute changes. Yet each obstacle reminded us why we are doing this. So we wanted to create a platform that unites voices across generations and geographies. Today, as we gather here, we have delegates, a mix of more than 20 countries, representing government, trade council, young leaders like you, and we are living with proof that with shared mission, nothing is impossible. I want to take this opportunity to thank our two partners that stay very loyal with us. Despite we had so many changes, but yet they stood by us, which is our broadcasting partner, TV Sarawak. So TV Sarawak, thank you so much for becoming our broadcasting partner. And also, the venue today, if you look around, we have a mix of nature and also a corporate and, of course, heritage blend in together. So that's what makes it unique. So thank you so much also, Handicraft Development Corporation, for hosting us here today at Kompleks Kraf. So let me just brief through a little bit. As you guys are aware, these past 2 days we have the ASEAN thing. You know, all roads are blocked, and there are so many logistics changes. But has Malaysia assumed the chairman of ASEAN, we carry one theme, which is the community of one shared property. So Malaysia leadership in ASEAN has always emphasized connectivity, sustainable development, and people-centered growth. Malaysia is positioning ASEAN as not just a regional bloc, but as a global partner of the future, one that embraces innovation, youth participation, and cross-border cooperation. And it is precisely in that spirit that this summit finds its relevance to complement Malaysia's chairmanship by linking ASEAN's shared property agenda with the Commonwealth shared values of democracy, development, and diversity. So today, we know we never heard that the Commonwealth and ASEAN have a working collaboration. So today is the start where we see most probably after the summit, we will be having a more working platform between the Commonwealth and also ASEAN. And if you look at the statistic, together Commonwealth and ASEAN represent nearly half of the world youth population, over 1.8 billion young people. And they represent economies worth over USD 20 trillion. But beyond statistics, this partnership symbolizes possibility, the possibility to connecting ideas, talent, innovation across two dynamic regions. Throughout this summit, we aim to session the bridge between the Commonwealth and ASEAN, not only at the policy level, but through real partnership in trade, education, environment, and culture. So I have come to my end of my speech. In preparing the summit, one lesson stands out. Collaboration is always messy, but it is beautiful. So we work hard in bringing together multiple stakeholders from the government, ministries, embassies, NGOs, universities, and corporate entities. And this taught us that cooperation is not about perfection. It is about progress. Although there were moments of uncertainty, yet also we have moments of inspiration. When doors closed, others opened. When challenge arose, so did new allies. So we have 5 themes for the summit, which we will have a panel session, which is the education, technology, trade and finance, environment, and social culture. So I hope during the panel session, you will have more inputs from our panelists, and also you guys can enjoy. And before I end, I would like to take this moment that this summit is youth-led, but not youth only. It is collaborative space where intergenerational leadership meets shared vision. The youth of today are not waiting for the future. We are building it. But allow me to express heartfelt appreciation to my chairman, Dr. Kishwa. Although he's not in the hall, but he is the one that guided me from nothing to today, to making this day possible. And I will just finish by sending a message to our international delegates who travel across borders to be here. Welcome to Malaysia. Selamat datang ke Kuala Lumpur. looking ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Pashmanda. To set the note for today's conversation, I invite on stage our opening note speaker, Ms. Muskan Anand, Asia Regional Representative for Commonwealth Youth Council.
Hello. Yeah. Distinguished delegates, fellow speakers, and I can see a lot of young faces in this room. Good morning to you all. Can I hear loud good morning? Nice. So it is both an honor and privilege to stand before you all today as the Asia Regional Representative of the Commonwealth Youth Council, representing the voices and determination of over 1.5 billion young people across the 56 member states of the Commonwealth. I will start by saying a beautiful Sanskrit shlok from Rig Veda, which goes like this. Sangachadvam Samvadadvam Samvo Mamamsi Janatam Deva Bhagam Yatha Purve Sanjanana Upasate, which means let us move together, let us speak in harmony, let our minds be united, just as the gods of old united in purpose, so may we come together in shared understanding. And I think we all know that that is the purpose of our summit. Let me begin by extending my heartfelt congratulations to the government and people of Malaysia for their visionary leadership as chair of ASEAN in 2025. This year's chairmanship has not only reaffirmed Malaysia's long-standing commitment to regional cooperation, but has also elevated the discourse on youth sustainability and innovation across Southeast Asia. Under Malaysia's leadership, we have witnessed bold strides in regional digital transformation, the strengthening of intra-ASEAN trade frameworks, and a renewed emphasis on inclusive education and green recovery. The launch of the ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement negotiations, the ASEAN Blue Economy Forum, and the emphasis on youth empowerment through the ASEAN Future Forum as just few examples of Malaysia's catalytic role in shaping a resilient and forward-looking ASEAN. And it is precisely this spirit of inclusive leadership that makes Malaysia's chairmanship in 2025 so significant, not just for ASEAN, but for the broader global South. Prime Minister of my country, Mr. Narendra Modi, yesterday, while delivering his virtual address at the ASEAN Summit, emphasized that in this rapidly changing world, a strong foundation is essential for ensuring stability and fostering development amid growing uncertainties. And I think he said it very aptly because at a time when multilateralism is being tested, Malaysia has shown that principled leadership rooted in cooperation and shared values can still move us forward. So kudos to Malaysia for that. This year's ASEAN theme, inclusivity and sustainability, resonates deeply with the ethos of the Commonwealth. It speaks to a vision of regionalism that is not transactional but transformational. A vision where sustainability is not just about carbon metrics, but about community resilience. Where inclusivity is not a checkbox, but a commitment to equity across gender, geography, and generation. The Commonwealth, too, is built on a foundation of shared values: democracy, development, diversity, and dialogue. Across 56 member states, from the Caribbean to the Pacific, from Africa to Asia, we are united, not by geography, but by a common belief in the power of cooperation, the strength of youth, and the promise of a better tomorrow. It is in this spirit that the Commonwealth Asean Summit becomes not just timely, but necessary. And this summit is more than a ceremonial gathering. It is a platform for policy convergence, for bridging regional gaps, and for translating youth aspirations into actionable frameworks. The 5 thematic pillars, as said by the speaker before me, education, technology, environment, trade and finance, and socio-cultural development, are not abstract categories. They are scaffolding of our shared future. Education is the cornerstone of equity. Technology is our bridge to the future. Environment is our moral imperative. Trade and finance must be inclusive. And socio-cultural development is the soul of our societies. These pillars, when approached with sincerity and strategy, can do wonders. We need to move forward with resilience, with commitment, and not see this dialogue as just a gathering, but as a platform for enduring partnerships. And as I'm speaking about partnerships, allow me now to share the journey of the Commonwealth Youth Council, an institution that embodies the very spirit of youth-led multilateralism. Established in 2013 and endorsed by the Commonwealth Heads of Government at their summit in Sri Lanka, the Commonwealth Youth Council was born out of a simple yet a profound idea that young people deserve not just a seat at the table, but a voice that shapes the agenda. With over 1.5 billion young people in the Commonwealth, the CYC was envisioned as a unified platform to amplify youth voices, advocate for youth rights, and empower young leaders to co-create solutions to the world's most pressing challenges. It has exactly now been 1 year this month since I, along with 9 other dedicated executives, were sworn in on the shores of Pacific Island, nation of Samoa. Since then, despite limited resources, we have worked with relentless commitment to ensure that youth are not just represented, but respected. In August this year, we made history. For the first time, CYC convened a consultative dialogue in Namibia, bringing together youth from across 56 Commonwealth nations to deliberate on resolutions that matter to youth. And out of that dialogue emerged the Windhoek Declaration, a youth-endorsed document that reflects the aspirations, concerns, policy priorities of young people from all 56 member states. But as I share the achievements, I want to also let you know that it has not been easy. Rallying support, navigating bureaucracy, and pushing for space is a constant uphill climb. But we persist because we believe in the power of youth, because we know that when young people lead, societies transform. This very summit is a testament to that belief. It is no coincidence that the person under whose leadership this summit has been brought to life is none other than Dr. Kishwa Ambigapathy, a former chairperson of the Commonwealth Youth Council. His journey from youth leader to global convener is a powerful reminder that the values we nurture today become the legacies we build tomorrow. His strength, his vigor, and his unwavering commitment to youth empowerment continue to inspire us all. And to every young person in this room and to every face that I see here, I say this with all my heart. Do not wait for the perfect opportunity. Do not overthink whether you are ready. Take the opportunity that you have now and give it everything that you have got. Because hard work never goes to waste. And youth leadership is not easy. It demands resilience, humility, and courage. It means showing up even when you are tired, speaking up when your voice shakes, and believing in change even when the odds are stacked against you. But it is also the most powerful way to grow, to discover your strength, to do things you never imagined possible. Back home in India, there is a saying among young activists, education for life and life for education. And if every young person lives by this, breathes by this, then we will not only uplift ourselves, we will uplift our communities, our countries, and our world. And I want to share one thing that once someone asked me, why do you, as a young person, think so much about your nation and about the world? Isn't that there time for that later? But I know and I believe from the bottom of my heart, because of a lot of young leaders before me and you has consistently proven that young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, we are the leaders of today. And leadership doesn't require a title. Yes, a title gives you a platform maybe, but what exactly needed is consciousness. A commitment to work on yourself, to sharpen your values, to lead with integrity. When you do that, the world around you begins to change. There's a quote that says, let one uplift oneself by one's own efforts. Let one not degrade oneself. For the self alone is one's friend, and the self alone is one's enemy. So this is a commitment that we have to make to ourselves in order to be able to serve the world. In closing, I extend my deepest gratitude to the organizers of this summit, to the government of Malaysia, and to all our ASEAN and Commonwealth partners. Thank you for creating this historic platform and for giving us the space to share the dreams and aspirations of young people across ASEAN and Commonwealth. And to my fellow speakers, I would say, let this summit be more than a dialogue. Let it be a declaration that youth are not an afterthought but a driving force, that regionalism is not about borders but about bridges, and that together, Commonwealth and ASEAN, we can co-create a future that is inclusive, sustainable, and inspired by youth leadership. I wish you all a meaningful summit, and to us all a journey of collaboration that continues long after we leave this place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Muskan. Before we enter our first dialogue of the day, we take a moment to honor the land and culture that hosts us. Malaysia is a country that built on heritage, identity, and meeting of many worlds. And here at the Craft Complex, we are surrounded by stories of craft, of tradition, of our community. To open the summit in that spirit, we welcome a performance that reflects beauty and diversity of this cultural expression. Let's give a big round of applause and welcome our stars from T-Stars on the stage, please.
Dari Beranang ke Batang Kali, singgah ulu yang membeli pisang. Irama joget menawan hati, kita menari berpasang-pasang. Melawati namanya bukit, indah bermain di pandang mata. Badan dihayun masa berjoget, tersilap langkah maaf dipinta. Joget Selangor rancak sekali, irama merdu mencuit hati. Joget Selangor menghibur hati, terubat sudah hati yang sepi. Tanjung Karang sawahnya padi, saujana mata memandang, bertepuk tangan sambil menari. Peristiwa lepas usah dikenang. Bandar Kelang, bandar diraja, Syah Alam ibu negeri. Ramai-ramai kita temasya, hilang rasa gundah di hati. Joget Selangor rancak sekali, irama merdu mencuit hati. Joget Selangor menghibur hati, terubat sudah hati yang sepi. Dari Banting ke Bagan Lalang, gah di Murib mencari kebah. Laut tenang, cuaca pun terang, ramai-ramai kita berkelah. Dusun tua pusat belia, Sungai Langat mengalir tenang. Ramai-ramai bersukaria, kita menari mengikut gendang. Joget Selangor rancak sekali, irama merdu mencuit hati. Joget Selangor menghibur hati, terubat sudah hati yang sepi. Joget Selangor inilah lagu, hilanglah sudah hati yang rindu. Joget Selangor inilah lagu, hilanglah sudah hati yang rindu. Joget Selangor inilah lagu, hilanglah sudah hati yang rindu. Joget Selangor inilah lagu, hilanglah sudah hati yang rindu.
What an amazing performance, guys. What a great start to this morning. Let's give one more round of applause for these little kids of T-Stars, please. Thank you so much. So, while we move ahead with our next sessions, like while we prepare for the stage, you know, we have delegates, we have innovators, we have policy makers, everyone across here. Together, Commonwealth and ASEAN symbolizing over 2 billion people and nearly 60% of the world's youth. This diversity is our greatest strength. Each one of us brings a story here, brings a background here, and a skill that adds to this shared moist. You know, in conversations like this, real impact begins off stage, during networking, coffee line, lunch, or quiet introductions, or a single idea that is exchanged between sessions like this. So if you haven't already, take a quick movement to the person near you. Say hello, say hi, tell them where you're from, engage, network. This is what we are here from. Pause, smile. That's the sound of the collaboration. So now we begin with our formal sessions. Education is just preparation for employment. It shows how individuals think, how societies mature, and how nations sustain progress. Across our nations, the questions are collectively facing this, that how do we ensure that education remains relevant, equitable, and noted in the realities that we are moving into. To help us explore with this question, I would like to invite the moderator, Ms. Nisha Harish, for the education track on the stage. Ms. Nisha is a law graduate with a strong interest in public policy, in the political campaign management. She currently serves as a young professional in the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Government of India. We are joined here by speakers whose work contributes in shaping education at institutional, system, and global levels. I invite Ms. Beth Button, the Director of External Affairs, Association of Commonwealth Universities. She leads partnerships across more than 400 universities in 40 Commonwealth nations. Her work builds research collaboration, institutional capability, and global academic exchange. I next invite Mr. Nick Chambers, the Managing Director, and Michael Page of Malaysia. He leads one of the region's leading talent and workforce development consultancies, where he works closely with education, industry, and policy stakeholders. His lens highlights how learning must align with evolving skill needs, market realities, and the future of work. I next up invite Mr. Johari Jamaluddin, Faculty Director of Law Enforcement and Administration, International University College. He develops academic and training frameworks that strengthen ethical leadership and public service capacity. His work connects education with integrity, community accountability, and real-world institutional responsibility. Let's give a big round of applause to all our guests before we start with the session.
A very good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to this session on education at the Commonwealth ASEAN Summit 2025. Our focus today is bridging the skills gap for the future economy, a theme that goes to the heart of how we build inclusive, adaptable, and future-ready societies. We're joined by an incredible panel of distinguished leaders from corporate, academia, and international networks, each bringing unique insights into how education can truly drive transformation. Over the next 65 minutes, we'll explore how learning systems can evolve to meet the demands of tomorrow's economy, how curriculum overhaul, lifelong learning, and public-private partnerships can close the skill gaps, and how equity in access remains essential for a meaningful progress. As we look ahead to the future of work and human capital, our discussions today aim to spark a new thinking, not just in what we teach, but how we empower individuals to keep learning, unlearning, and adapting throughout their lives. With that, let's begin this important conversation on shaping education for the future economy. We'll follow this format. I'll begin by asking one question to each of our three panelists in turn, and then we'll return to a second round of questions as per the time limit. After this, we'll also open the floor for the audience questions. So please feel free to note down any points or questions you would like to raise to our distinguished speakers. The first question is for Mr. Johari. Sir, at the International University College, you focus on bridging theoretical learning with real-world application. How can universities, sir, more effectively prepare for students in different fields to acquire strong ethics, discipline, and focus on accountability?
All right, thank you, Nisha. Assalamualaikum, very good morning, everyone. Semua dah makan ke? Breakfast. All right, so actually, I started the university is Innovative University College. And I started at Innovative by becoming a lecturer. So what we like to do as lecturers is that we like to analyze. So I believe among here are students, right? So we like to analyze which students are good, which students are naughty, and which students are loud, and which are like cheat small. Why I say cheat small? Because this is the term we Malaysian like to say. Sometimes they are here, sometimes they are not. So in Malay terms, we call it kejap ada, kejap tak ada. Right? So, however, what we want to analyze is what are the core issues on students going into working life. Then we found out that they are just reading books, learning on just books. There are not enough practicality in what they learn. So, the current curriculum emphasizes 80% of the duration of their study on theory, but only 20% were allocated for practical. So, what we decided is that we want to change the norm. We want them to have them study and at the same time to do practical. So this is what we call as work-based learning, or what we call as WBL is created. So as the name suggests, at Innovative, we innovate. And how we innovate is that all of our focus on way to combine the skills required for them, not just to get straight A's or 4 flats, but what is needed in the real world, which is skills, not just theory. So, how we develop programs in Innovative is that we have the basic skills. For example, in my faculty, as the faculty director of law enforcement, we have them to learn skills required to become a law enforcer. So, for law enforcement program, we have them not just to study in class, but we have them practice to do marching, or what we call as kawat kaki. We have them doing industrial training for enforcement bodies, not just any companies. And just to share on this note, it's not easy to place students in law enforcement bodies. Why? Because it is related to government dealings, government practice, which they need to learn about the law itself. So it is not easy. So when we partner, we have to show them why our student is credible enough to join these law enforcement bodies. And we have them also, the most popular sought after skills are the live firearm shooting practice. We call it latihan menembak lah. So, I don't know whether all of you students or maybe yourself, Nisha, and Mr. Nick and Miss Beth have done a live firearm shooting practice, but for my students, they have. And they have a license, a certification that shows they have been doing the live firearm practice, and when they go into the industry, if they go into the private sector, the salary for the allocated person which have a certification is double the salary of a normal, let's say, a security bodyguard, which is, the normal one is 4,000. The one with firearms certificate is 8,000 ringgit as a bodyguard. So this is what makes most students wants to join us, because basically they just want to shoot guns, right? So I believe that we are the first and maybe the only one in Malaysia that is doing this as an additional skill in their study to become an enforcer. So when we do this, we treat them not just as students, but we really treat them as the real life enforcer, which have the ethics, the discipline, and of course, the accountability. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. The next question is for Mr. Nick. Sir, as someone deeply involved in shaping Malaysia's executive recruitment landscape, what key shifts are you noticing in the kind of skills or mindsets employers are looking for in graduates today? And what overhaul in curriculum would you recommend thereby, sir?
Thank you. What a privilege it is to be here this morning. I certainly wish when I was the age of many of the attendees that we had a similar platform. My perspectives come from that of the recruitment sector. So company I work for helps people get jobs. Majority of what we look at is skills within Malaysia and across ASEAN. And the world of work has never moved as fast as it is today. Yet what's frightening is that it will never move as slowly as it does today. It will only continue to get faster and faster. And I think that there's a big opportunity for education and business to work a lot more closely. And it's challenging for education to keep pace. But the big skills that we're seeing is the big shift from traditional-based hiring to skills-based hiring. So historically, recruitment was what I would call a round peg, round hole game. You are hiring based on degree qualification, you are hiring based on job title, and a lot of those two things fall back to privilege in terms of your access to information, education, sorry. And the great thing is we're now starting to see a lot more of skills-based hiring, which brings a lot more equity into the recruitment market. And companies are emphasizing a lot more on human skills, soft skills. And the great thing about human skills and soft skills is that these things are free and can be learned. Digital fluency is becoming ever more important. That doesn't mean you need to be able to write code yourself, but you need to be comfortable using AI technology, comfortable using data to make decisions, better decisions. So this realignment of soft skills as being a differentiator is becoming more and more important. Critical thinking, resilience, that cross-collaboration. These are all skills that you're able to learn from a relatively young age. And also just growth mindset and the ability to have a thirst for lifelong learning. It is really, really important. If you as a student are waiting to be taught everything, okay, you might progress. But if you're willing to take genuine accountability for your own learning journey, you will go so much further. There's a great business that we do a lot of work with. It's called Arcadia Consulting. And they came up with this agility quotient, and they call it the AHEAD framework. It's 5 key things they look at. Firstly is the ability to anticipate. How good are you at getting a feel for that oncoming train before you see it? How quickly can you spot trends in the market before they actually happen? Then it's the ability to harmonize. And that's really around collaborative transparency. And when we look at Commonwealth and ASEAN, the ability to collaborate across cross-cultural communities is really, really essential these days. And then there's the enable piece, what I mentioned about digital enablement, feeling comfortable with technologies. And then also adapt. How quickly are you able to demonstrate your adaptive learning in difficult situations? And then one that I think is critically important is the ability to decide. A lot of leaders, and I loved in the welcome note, it was mentioned that you don't have to be senior or have a fancy title to be a leader. It's leading without title. And the ability to decide is so important. A lot of leaders have opinions, but very few have got the ability to make decisions with intent and with confidence. So that in itself is also another really important skill.
Thank you so much, sir. I think many of the delegates here, and including myself, have come to realize that soft skills, like you were mentioning, are very important, and the landscape has shifted so much in the last 5 years alone. So, thank you, sir. The next question is for Ms. Beth. Ma'am, as universities across Commonwealth prepare students for a rapidly changing world of work, what do you see as the most critical skills for the future economy, and how can higher education systems evolve to nurture them effectively?
Thank you. As mentioned, the Association of Commonwealth Universities has a network of more than 400 institutions across 41 countries. Now, 170 of our members are in fact in Asia, and I think that speaks to the real depth of partnership that we have in this region and the opportunities for further collaboration. We are a membership organisation, but we also have a role as the voice of higher education within the Commonwealth, meaning that we both support our university members to adapt to this changing world and the students and staff within them. And we also look to affect systems change with the policy environment in turn affects the work that our members do. And I think has been alluded to, the fact that we are in this rapidly changing world of work means that the work that our universities do to respond to that is so important. But also in the Commonwealth, 60% of the Commonwealth's population are under 30, and with such a young population, the Commonwealth is both the forefront of this emerging world of work and opportunity for a emerging, skillful, youthful population to drive change, but it's also where many of the challenges that we're going to explore today are really being explored. So how can universities keep pace with this change? Now, if any of you have worked in universities or with universities, you'll know we are big institutions, complex institutions, And the kind of scale of pace that Nick's referred to is so rapid that one of the biggest challenges is how universities can do this in a effective way whilst maintaining the kind of quality assurance and regulatory burden that is often upon them. So we've recently done a survey of all of our member universities to understand how they're aligning their courses with the future skills of the business and industry. And we found that 80% of our universities are already aligning their courses with industry needs. And that might be co-creating their courses with employers, delivering practical skills-based learning, as has been alluded to, or offering internships, placements, and mentorships. But there were huge gaps in our findings. And this is where the regulatory infrastructure and funding environment with governments is not keeping pace. And what I mean by that is that we need, in this changing world of work, micro-credentials, lifelong learning, digital and blended learning, and the funding and regulatory drivers for that just aren't there in the way that they need to be. So we need to see governments, businesses, and universities working much closer together to adapt to this. The other thing I'd just say is, and as an example of this, I was at the University of Cyberjaya just yesterday, where they had local, national, and international businesses on site who were working with the graduates in biomedical chemistry and engineering to support them on their development of projects and skills-based learning. So there are some really exciting examples of this happening, but we need to see it at a much faster level. And just quickly, I think the really important thing that we're seeing is entrepreneurship a few years ago was, it's no longer a niche endeavor. It's no longer something that we can afford to have as a standalone to our university education. I think it really needs to be embedded, and we're seeing universities adopt this much more. So many of our members now have a core part of the curriculum. We've got incubators on site, seed funding, mentorship happening. And for the skills that the panel have spoken to, those soft skills, that creativity, that ability to adapt to an ever-changing world, a lot of those skills can be realized through entrepreneurship education. And we're seeing that in our own work. So we have the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission that we administer on behalf of the UK government. We recently ran the first ever Commonwealth Fellowship Scheme, where we brought together 50 young entrepreneurs from across the Commonwealth. We ran boot camp in Ghana and in London. And those entrepreneurs are being supported through this network and mentorship to take forward their ideas. So we're adapting how we work, universities are adapting how they work with governments and with businesses. But I think if we look to the future, then we're going to need to see even more of that.
Thank you, ma'am. I think even in India, we see increasing focus on entrepreneurship. And like you said, it is moving beyond a specific, moving beyond tech maybe. Every sector now has a specific aspect for entrepreneurship to be fostered. So that's happening in India as well. So thank you, ma'am. So the next question is for Mr. Jora. So law enforcement education is a unique area. How can educational programs balance academic rigor with practical and field-based training, especially while dealing with issues of public trust and community engagement?
Well, for Innovative University College, what we do is that when we develop a program, we see what is the thing that is needed when they want to go into the working environment first before we develop the program. So if you want to develop a program that's just having them being in classes, that's not the point. So we structure it in a way whereby what they learn, doesn't matter whether it's in class or practically, it is for the use of what they are going to become. So for example, in law enforcement, every week, every month, we will have activities such as what I just told you just now, so that at the end of their education, they have enough training, enough certification for them to become a law enforcer. So that's why in Malaysia, I believe that our students are the most sought after in law enforcement bodies because of these skills. So in Innovative, we have 3 major programs that affect the change in education platform in Malaysia. The first most popular one is management of Hajj and Umrah. So for Muslim people who wants to go for pilgrimage in Mecca, we are training our students to become their mutawif, the person that is going to guide them. But in our program, we are the only one in the world that provides our students to go to Mecca and become a part of the travel agency's representative to bring the people. So that is the most popular one. The second one, the most popular in Innovative, is my program, the law enforcement program. The third one in industry is on hotel management. So at first, we started by having only 6 months of industrial training. We sent to Malaysian Qualification Agency, which is the governing body for the education sector here in Malaysia, and we told them 6 months is not enough. We need to structure in a way that they are not learning 80% in class for hotels. They need to learn in hotels 80% of the time. 20% of the time only they go to classes just to know the basic knowledge. So what we did is we changed the landscape and we changed the curriculum whereby the student is going to learn with the lecturers, the hands-on lecturers in the hotels, 80%, which is 18 months. And the balance of the 12 months, which is only a year, in class. And when we change that, we also give the students opportunities to earn income while studying. So, therefore, the term work-based learning. So, the students are exposed in community events, also in helping the poor, helping the flood victim, mostly in the monsoons areas, and it gives them the opportunity to gain public trust, even as a student. And for law enforcement, this is the foundation that will be used one day for them to become a law enforcer. One day, I believe, we are going to have the best law enforcement academy in Malaysia, and in ASEAN, and maybe inshallah the world. Thank you.
I really hope that happens soon as well, sir. And the fact that you said about the Mecca course that is there in the first aspect, that's something that none of us knew, so that's something that's really interesting. Thank you, sir. So the second question for Mr. Nick. So Michael Page often publishes reports on employment trends. How can, so based on the reports, when we were trying to understand, we want to know from you, sir, how can the education sector, from universities to the vocational training segments, respond more quickly to the evolving needs of the industry, and how can public-private partnership help in this regard?
It's such a great question, and I'm almost nervous answering it, sat between 2 people heavily involved in the education sector. It's very hard for businesses to stay relevant for the points we all made that the world is moving so quickly. But I genuinely feel it's exceptionally tough for the world of academia because the world is evolving so fast. You know, how do universities go through changing complete curriculums with training programs whilst maintaining quality standards and governance and what have you, and stay relevant. By the time those decisions are being made, that new shiny technology or skill set is already in the workforce, already in the marketplace. So it's very, very tough. And it comes back to also just looking at agility. And I think the world of education, universities, certainly schools are already on this pathway. You know, moving away from very rigid curriculum-based learning, having more bite-sized, snackable content that can be learned is also important. Looking at that blended learning that you were mentioning before, not just having one style of learning, mix of classroom and practical is really important. But I don't want to put all of the focus on academia and education. I also think that the workforce has a really important role to play in this. And I often hear business leaders saying, students of today are not ready for the workforce. Okay, possibly fair in some areas, but not all. But also, what are you doing to help fix that problem? I hear lots of complaints, but not many solutions from the world of business. And I think businesses have got a lot more that they can do to lean into universities, higher education, have far bigger, better, deeper embedded partnerships with universities. I would love there to be a lot more internships as part of universities and even schools, having 16, 17-year-olds entering the workplace, understanding what it is like to work in the world of work. There are people who I hire that when they come into an interview, it's their first ever time stepping into an office environment. They're already starting from -5 compared to some people who've done 6 months internships. So there's a lot more that we can do, from co-designing programs for students to spend more time in the workplace before they actually graduate. I think that's important. Let's get graduates job ready, so when they come in on day one, it's not new to them. I think that's really important. And I also think that there's going to be a lot more data that the world of work, business, enterprise can provide universities to help them design these, co-design these curriculums as well. So we talked about the AHEAD framework that Arcadia created. Harmonization was really important, so that transparent collaboration between both is really important. And then also just that ability to decide. Universities, they are big, complex organizations, and the ability to make decisions is challenging. You're not turning a jet ski, you're turning a cruise ship, and it takes a lot longer to slow down, to turn, and to maneuver. So I just think that ability to make decisions quicker will become essential in education as well. But to caveat all of that, I honestly think that education probably has one of the most challenging roles to play in the future of skills, just given how fast the world is working.
About internships, like you mentioned, sir, it has an intersection with, I think, ma'am's area of work as well, with several scholarships now considering internships also as a period of work. So I think internships play a very important role in today's day and time. Ma'am, the next question, I think you've also mentioned about it, the aspect of digital transformation being a key. So digital transformation and access to remain key challenges in higher education. How is the Association of Commonwealth Universities helping member institutions enhance digital inclusion and global mobility for students, ma'am?
Thank you. And I think those skills that we've spoken about, those soft skills, that creativity, flexibility, the ability to respond to a world that's going to demand so much more than just your single qualification and pathway of learning from you, is exciting in some ways. And I think the thing to caveat all of this with is the desire from universities and educators and employers to support graduates to navigate that world. But I think there is a real risk here that the digital transformation agenda is going to leave a significant proportion of our world behind. And I think when I look at the Commonwealth context more broadly, we have huge gaps and inequalities in digital connectivity, digital infrastructure, and the ability for people to take up the opportunities that this digital transformation affords, both in the world of work and in education. And that the drive to widen and increase equitable access to higher education is at real risk of being kind of the inequalities being widened. So I think digital is both an opportunity, but it is also a risk. And that discrepancy in digital access, we've been working for a number of years to address as the ACU. At a very simple level, when we invite scholars and students to take part in programs, we offer data grants to enable them to connect. We support them through our programs. We have a program called the Partnership for Enhanced and Blended Learning that was delivered in East and West Africa across 29 universities, that was a train-the-trainer approach that supported the development of blended and digital approaches to teaching by training teachers to go and train other teachers. And it really helped. Pre-pandemic, we'd already started rolling it out in some countries, and we saw then that as we went into that digital world, those countries in Rwanda and others who had already started embodying this program were really well prepared to then respond to that. And that's been really to try and help address some of the inequity in access to support those who can't physically attend higher education to do so. But I think at a bigger macro level around the policy environment, we've been working really closely with the Commonwealth Secretariat on their AI. They've got a group looking at AI across the Commonwealth, and we've been feeding into that. And I think universities have a role to play both as the hubs for research on AI, so driving innovations and also helping governments think about regulation, about innovation and the policy response, because part of the challenge to this is as nations, are we ready to keep up with the pace that's being set for us by the technology companies from a regulation point of view, and universities can help governments with that. But then also within their own practices. So we as a Commonwealth network, we share learnings, policies, practices across our universities, so that if one university has found an innovative way to digitize and to embed automation and AI in their teaching practices, we can share that across the network to support others, so that we ensure that we bring everybody up through this journey together and we don't leave anyone behind. But I think that question of inequity in digital access is going to be a really important one for us to keep in mind.
Truly, ma'am. Thank you. So my question is to you. As more young people show interest in governance and justice, what can be done to make civic and legal education more appealing and relevant to this generation? And how can we embed the principles of lifelong learning within it to gap for the future economy?
All right. Before I answer that question, I just want I think for us to acknowledge and for the audience to know that the three panelists here, including myself, actually is a very good combination to what the topic is all about today, because I believe Nick is the right person to link the students to the industry, and we have the representative Beth from ACU, which links all the institutions in ASEAN to get the inputs on what is needed in the industry. And for myself, which is the industry itself, wants to develop a better audience, which are the students. So this, for the audience, is the best platform for you all to hear what is the next step in our education platform for ASEAN and inshallah the world. So first, when talking to the new generation, and we want to have what is appealing and relevant to the future graduates. As you can see, I believe, who among the audience are students? Can you raise up your hand? Students? Okay, I believe most of you are students. So we can see that their attention span is lesser than 10 minutes because somebody is already looking at the phone, somebody is already sleeping. Okay. And I guess that's normal, right? When we were students also we were like that, right? So somebody is still focusing on their phones. It's okay, main-main je. Sila tengok, tak ada masalah. So why I'm relating to this is because actually when we want to do some changes and we want to teach the students, we have to follow their style, right? You cannot say, I want to test this out. Everyone can try to reply me when I say this. What's up, y'all? Okay. Apa khabar semua? Alright, I'll try another one. Is everyone 6'7"? See? That's replying. So you can understand that this is a different generation. This is a different generation. Oh, it's also same. Oh, okay, sorry. So then they go 6, 7, right? Okay, let me try again. Is everyone 6, 7? So there you go. These are the new generation. So if your idea of a good education is just still in class, you will be left behind because you will create a non-progressive student. So what we have to do, to your question, to make a forward, future-thinking education, simple. We have to make education fun and practical. That's the only way. Then everything will be... So there you go, Nisha. That's my answer to your final question.
Thank you, sir, for that practical example of telling us how it should be. Going ahead, sir, you've spoken publicly a lot about neurodiversity and inclusion in workspace. How can educational institutions better support diverse learners early on, ensuring equity, and how can it help them prepare for a meaningful employment later?
My daughter would be so cringe if she knew I was doing 6-7 on stage this morning. So yeah, I was diagnosed with being highly dyslexic when I was 19, first year at university. So I went through all of my early learning, primary, high school, not knowing. I knew there was something not wrong, but different with my ability to read, to spell, to write. But it didn't have a name, it hadn't been diagnosed. But looking back, going through the best part of 12 years of academics, not knowing, really developed what I honestly refer to now as my superpower. Resilience. Dyslexics have high empathy. I lead 200 plus people, and one of my hopefully biggest strengths is leadership care. I really care about the people that I work with, and that comes from high empathy. So dyslexia and also just neurodiverse talent is a phenomenal talent pool that is grossly underutilized at the moment. And part of that is that a lot more work, and it's getting so much better these days, but there still needs to be a lot more work in early identification. I think in developing worlds, and even within developing worlds, you have city standard education, and we also have rural education as well. Early identification of neurodivergent talent is critically important. Otherwise, the individuals just fall out of love with learning. And it's not that they're not able to learn, they just learn differently. That's all it comes down to. So we talked about adaptability and agility earlier. There needs to be agility from learning pathways. We need to have alternate learning opportunities. I was never good at just reading text. I'm a visual learner. If I see something, I understand it. if I just get told something, I really struggle. The irony that I'm dyslexic and I struggle with reading, yet I have to have all my notes with me all the time. So having those alternate learning pathways is really important. And again, coming back to that employer and academic collaboration, those transition pathways for neurodivergent talent from the world of learning into the world of work. It's getting better. Huge shout out to Petronas and EY. They are doing some brilliant work on developing pathways for neurodivergent talent. And also Touch and Go. Touch and Go have made a really conscious effort to hire neurodivergent talent into technology roles. People with on the spectrum, there are roles which they are exceptionally good at. And I think we need to see more companies like Petronas, like Touch and Go, embracing this talent pool. ACCA and the British Malaysia Chamber of Commerce have done some phenomenal studies on which roles suit different people with different neurodivergent challenges. And I think, again, that there's a lot more that can be done there. So early identification is key. Adapting pathways is really important. And then those partnerships to seamlessly move neurodivergent talent through education into the workforce is really important.
Following the education space, sir, there's actually so few people who speak about this specific thing. So thank you for bringing it to the spotlight. This is for the audience. We will be moving to a question-answer, a Q&A session. So I'd request you all to make a note of your questions that you don't want to ask our distinguished speakers. Ma'am, the other question to you. You worked in the intersection of education and policy. How can universities, ma'am, play a stronger role in shaping national and regional policies, be it in education or otherwise?
Thank you. And the fact I don't know what 6'7" was shows that I'm not on TikTok, and I feel quite out of the loop with this. I will go and download TikTok and educate myself. I think the first thing to say is universities are incredibly keen to play a greater role, both at a local, regional, national level. As we said, most of our universities already work with local employers in partnership, co-creating curriculums. They play a role as anchor institutions in their regions. We call that often a civic mission, a third pillar of a university's purpose. So education, research, and community engagement. And so universities are incredibly embedded and they want to do more. But in our recent survey, we found that they struggle internationally to play as much of a role or to shape kind of policy and practice. And what that might look like is not being able to navigate a complex multinational, international employment space. So structured collaboration frameworks that enable universities to play a role at a more international level is what our members want to see. But for us as the association, we are always looking for ways to better connect our member universities up with the international policy space. I think the Commonwealth has a unique advantage in this. We are, as a forum for collaboration, we have shared language, shared systems that enable university collaboration and policy exchange to take place. And it is kind of a living laboratory for that knowledge exchange. And you see it not only for us as an association of 400 members, but our sister organizations like the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council that creates trade and connectivity amongst businesses. There are a number of other bodies, and we call the Commonwealth a network of networks. There are, I think, 90 accredited organizations that exist within the Commonwealth to represent and engage different diverse groups. But just back to higher education, we set up a higher education task force where we recognized that education ministers within the Commonwealth would meet every couple of years to commit to high-level dialogue and commit to high-level policy commitments. And what we recognize is that our universities can help those ministers translate those commitments into action, both by being vehicles for their own policy, so both by sharing the kind of policy that the academics within the network could work with governments on, but also being a forum to support universities and governments to share best practice and exchange knowledge. So that higher education task force looks at areas including access and inclusion, so how we can further equality and inclusion within higher education, research, entrepreneurship and employability. It's looking at finance and funding, so a range of areas in which universities are wanting to shape that policy landscape. And I think what we have also tried to do as the ACU is take universities out of the education policy space. I think Higher Education Task Force and our work with Commonwealth Ministers of Education has really embedded universities at the heart of that debate. But actually universities play an incredible role in many policy areas. And an example of this is we recently commissioned some research into the economic impact of higher education to take to finance ministers, because we need to show the value of higher education not only to those in the education ministries, but also those across government, recognizing that through the research that they do, through the skills and employability of the youth, that they will play a really vital role in the trade ambitions of the Commonwealth. And we also go to oceans ministers' meetings, we go to the health ministers' meetings, we attend the ministerial meetings across the full breadth of the Commonwealth's work to really show that education, youth, students, and the work that higher education does is going to be really essential for realizing a more resilient and connected Commonwealth. So I think, yeah, practically, we find ways to get our academics, get our universities in front of and engaged with multilateral institutions like the Commonwealth, as well as the other organizations within them, recognizing that there's sometimes difficult for them to bridge that gap between the local and regional engagement up into that space, but that universities are keen to do so, and I think the governments, I'd hope they'd agree, would benefit from that connectivity at the Commonwealth level.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your insights on that. Now we're opening the floor for questions from the audience to the panelists. We could have you raise your hands and we'll have the ushers and the volunteers come around, give you the mic. I'd request you to kindly mention your name, ask your question, and also specify if you want to ask it to a specific panelist.
Hello. Hello, my name is Mark. I'm actually one of the speakers later for the environmental session. And thank you for this wonderful panel discussion. And education, there's something that's always, sorry, I'm very dizzy with the echo. I'm very intrigued by the idea of AI and how it's impacted education. And over the last 5 years, I'm sure the dynamics of everything has shifted quite a lot, especially like nowadays when my team and I, when we start going to universities, we start seeing people who are afraid to even respond without going through AI and everything. And I'm wondering, how does this affect the whole dynamics of the within universities, and also later on when they are moving out of universities, starting to look for jobs, looking for employment? Because what I notice as well is, when people get too involved with AI, they start losing that touch, and they also lose some of that ability to think critically. And I think this is a huge problem, not only in Malaysia, but throughout the world. And so I'm asking, what steps are being done, and how can the community as a whole come in to support, to reduce the impact of AI? I know AI is very good, but it's also very dangerous and very scary. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So would anyone want to go first? Nick, sir, or Beth, ma'am?
I don't mind taking this one first. I think the first thing is, I think universities recognize that, AI is being used by students, and I think that The question is how to support them to use it sensibly and to use it in a way that teaches them the kind of critical skills to be able to interrogate the information that they're being shown and to ask those key questions about what data is being used to train these models, whose data is not being used. And I think that's a core thing of assessing the information that they receive online, whether that's through AI or just generally through a more automated and tech-first world. So a lot of our universities are using AI themselves in their own kind of in their own practices, but also teaching students to use it in a more critical and constructive way. I think we're past the point now of people trying to discourage the use of it or pretending it's not happening. I think there's a recognition of the value of it from an automation point of view to support students, but it goes back to the first discussion of how do you support them to have the broader, softer skills that are needed when automation and AI is taking away some of the more kind of foundational sides of that. So yeah, I think critical skills and just really questioning the data that you're being presented with and whose stories are being told and what information is feeding those models.
It's such a great question to get first up. Thank you. Technology is a wonderful enabler. We know that, but unfortunately, it's a huge disabler as well. It removes the human connection, the human touch that the world has effectively been built on, and until technology really started gathering pace. Which is why these human skills become ever more important. ChatGPT is brilliant at helping me, respond to emails or write white papers. But unfortunately, even I can feel myself becoming less creative in my own thinking. And it's easy to become quite lazy just using technology. So I think we owe it to ourselves to ensure that we have that right balance between using technology, but also using the most complex technology that we were given, which is up here, our own brains. And unfortunately, because of things like social media, we now have this world of perfectionism where you don't want to, I would love to know how many selfies have been taken today. QA, QC, no, delete, it's not good enough, want another one. Unfortunately, that is the world we now live in, where everything has to be perfect, but it doesn't. And do you know what? There is huge beauty in imperfection as well. If I could, guarantee that my daughter learned one thing, it would be that you don't have to be perfect, because it creates this spectrum where people feel they must be on one end of the spectrum or the other. But you know what? Middle ground's also okay. So I think there's a lot we can be grateful for with technology, but yeah, it does worry me as well, and that's why these soft skills are becoming more and more important.
All right. Actually, to answer that question, it's a little bit long, so bear with me a little bit. First of all, you have to understand AI is inevitable. The next generation of Gen Z or generation of 6, 7 is going to use AI eventually in their everyday life. Even making decision, should I get married tomorrow? Maybe. So, what we have to understand is that there's changes in generation. Who among this crowd from the 80s? From the 90s? 90s. From millennials, Gen Z. You guys, I believe, right? All right. So, during the 80s, the only method for you to learn is by books. In the 90s, it's the sweet spot. It's the change in generation from the manual books to the evolution of the internet. So everything you Google. But doesn't mean when you Google something, you didn't learn something. Same goes to AI. When you're talking about AI, AI is actually a tool. But the intelligence behind it is all of you that are using the tools. You have the most powerful AI in the world, actual intelligence. So why would you want to depend on artificial intelligence? So, to answer the question, AI is going to change the world, but don't become 100% dependent on it. Use it as a tool for us to create a better generation of future young people. So that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Going ahead, we could have the mic.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Samarth from India. My question is to Ms. Button in specific, and any one of you can answer, obviously. Ms. Button mentioned ensuring the quality of education. While in India, obviously, it has a very huge population, and to cater the education needs of everyone, we need private institutions as well. I wanted to ask if that's a phenomena elsewhere also. Do you have private institutions? How do you manage them? How do you plan on being, it is a state's job to provide education for sure, but if state fails to do so, because of the vast population, how do you think we can move forward with quality education in the private institutions as well? And if we were to say that private institutions are at par with government, what about the scholarships that can be given or provided, and that are being provided in the UK or maybe elsewhere in Commonwealth? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a simple answer to the question about working with private universities. Our network includes some of the largest public institutions, some of the smallest private specialist institutions in the Commonwealth. In India, we have around 104 universities, of which a mixture of public, private, philanthropic, so a real diversity of that network. And we work with all those universities to share learnings that are translatable across and between institutions. Obviously, the context in which they're funded or the regulations that they adhere to may differ, and it is a challenge when we work across 56 Commonwealth countries with varying policy environments, but there is always enough to share and learn from each other within that. And I think there's a lot of innovation that happens actually within the private institutions, where there's sometimes flexibility around the way in which they operate and work. So we see a lot of commonality, but a lot of sharing where there are differences as well. Your question about scholarships, I haven't had a chance to mention, but we as the association we have the Commonwealth Scholarship and Fellowship Plan, which is a Commonwealth-wide framework for fostering mobility and exchange within and between Commonwealth citizens, and it includes a number of scholarships. So the Commonwealth Scholarships Commission, which is our UK postgraduate award. We have Queen Elizabeth Commonwealth Scholarship, which is a multilateral framework where students can go and study from any Commonwealth country to a low and middle income country. And I met 2 students from Nigeria yesterday who are studying at UPM here in Malaysia, doing their masters. And we have a number of other initiatives for small island developing states. And I think really at the heart of that is supporting the next generation of youth and leaders, particularly within the Commonwealth, to learn from each other, to share and exchange knowledge and cultural practices, and to build a connected Commonwealth that is working together for the future. One of the areas, just going back to an earlier question about how we use digital, we set up a virtual exchange program a few years ago, recognizing that not all students are able to take up physical exchange programs, whether that's because of family circumstance or preference, or their own learning journey. And that was really transformative in widening access to intercultural exchange, so that you aren't reliant solely on an individual's ability to go and spend time abroad, to be able to connect with and engage with others from around the world. So I think thinking about the benefits of digital, I think there are a huge number of opportunities to apply that to the way in which we look at scholarships as well. But I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Moving ahead, we would not know if anyone has. Yeah. Could we please have the mic passed on to this side of the audience?
So good morning. My name is Muhammad Nazri. So I'm from Malaysia. So I'm from the Commonwealth Youth Peace Ambassador Network, Saipan. So I work a lot with kids, especially underprivileged kids, where I run an NGO that focuses on empowering community through education. So my question is, normally we do programs in rural areas, and I find most of the initiatives that we conduct in these particular areas are not sustainable. So what are the advice from the panelists in order to actually ensure that the initiative that we carry out, especially in the underprivileged community, are sustainable and are giving more longer impact to the community? That's my first question. And the second one is how we can actually use education as a tool to educate the younger generation in utilizing AI and the power of technology in improving their education. Thank you.
So, sorry, your first question was how do we make it sustainable towards education in rural areas, right? Basically, what you need to do, what the government of Malaysia is doing in general, is bridging the gap of the city area and the rural areas access for education. So, a sustainable education depends on the accessibility of one demographics access towards education. So for you to make it sustainable, the education have to go there. So for example, there's a story in the peninsula, the west of Malaysia, which is in Sabah or Sarawak, whereby a teacher from Peninsular Malaysia have to travel and teach that. Every day, the students have to travel for, I think, 2 hours just to go to school. Is it? So they have to go by walking through a 3-kilometer walk, going through a canoe, 30 minutes canoeing, a boat, to the school, just to get education. So, in simple terms, when you give access, when you give accessibility in terms of providing the infrastructure, providing the teachers to the rural areas, that will create sustainability in education in rural areas. In Malaysia, I would say most of the demographics have no issues in accessibility. But now we are seeing more and more education which is borderless through internet. So again, the issue is on how we want to get to the rural areas. So through internet, we can do that. My background is in IT, computer science. So if you know about the recent technology of Starlink, which doesn't require the infrastructure by cable or Wi-Fi, you just require open air, which is the satellite, for you to access the internet, a high-speed internet. That, in my opinion, is the best sustainable way for rural areas. You get that access towards the rural areas, you get the sustainable education for them via online, through Google Meet and whatever online video conferencing that you have. Because then rural areas will have access to this education. So that's my answer on the first question, I believe so, right? What was the second question again?
I think Beth can take it.
So I think back to the question on AI just now, we have actual intelligence and artificial intelligence. So AI is inevitable. You have to put AI in your curriculum. Very simple. If you teach the students on there's ethics on AI, because why I say about ethics is because when you use AI, you don't want the students to become, in a way, the harsh word is dumb or stupid in a way, because we want them to be able to have actual intelligence, them to be able to think with their own mind. But for them to explore things, sometimes they want to have a person that they can communicate with. AI can become that too. So educate the students in ethics in using AI, then everybody will be intelligent. So that's my answer to the second question. Anything that you want to add?
Just on the first question, the initiative I mentioned earlier, the Partnership for Enhanced and Blended Learning, was set up almost exactly for this kind of reason, to widen access to higher education for those who either, because of capacity limitations in an educational institution, meaning they can't physically teach more students in that location, or because students weren't able to come to where the university were located. The train-the-trainer model gave a framework by which teachers could teach each other how to use digital and blended to then expand access. So I think just thinking differently about what a traditional form of teaching looks like and how you can teach differently in rural context or in contexts where demand outstrips supply, and digital can be a really key tool for that. But again, we come back to that question of, is the data connectivity there? Is the digital infrastructure there? Does everybody have access to the devices and the technology to be able to do so? And so again, just ensuring that we don't leave anyone behind in that. And I think, as I said, education is a tool for not only teaching how to use AI, but really importantly, how to critically use it and interrogate what you're seeing through AI. I think that's the really key thing that universities are grappling with at the moment, because students are presenting essays with references for research that doesn't exist. And we've seen that a few times now, where AI models, they hallucinate, right? So they give you what you think you want to see. And so when AI is uncritically rolled out by students or any of us, when we use it and just effectively replicate what we're told, I think universities are now supporting students to say, right, produce an essay, use AI to look up the sources, use AI to do the research, but then we want you to then critically analyze what you're being told. So it isn't about teaching them just to use it, but teaching them to use it with that kind of question as to what are they being given by the AI. And I think, again, we come back to what data is being used to train those models, because there's a risk that AI will only embed and further replicate inequalities and discriminatory ideas. So, yeah.
In your opinion, what do you think about to what extent has the rapid advancements of artificial intelligence (AI) actually widened the educational gap between the developing and developed countries? While advanced nations are integrating the AI into their educational systems, such as improving access and personalized learning and digital skills. And now many developing countries still struggles with limited resources, digital infrastructure, and trained educators. So in your opinion, how can international collaboration help to ensure that this AI in education becomes a tool for inclusivity rather than a factor that deepens the educational inequality? So thank you. That is all from me.
Thank you. I think I heard it all. The microphone was going a bit, but the question is, how can AI be used as a tool not to widen inequality, but to address it, right? Again, I think what we've seen is where there are gaps in connectivity or kind of data use, that AI, there is a real role for partnerships here. So partnerships with tech companies, partnerships with those who are developing the digital infrastructure, We're seeing that across the Commonwealth, where countries are working with them to ensure that there's the establishment of data centers and data connectivity. But again, I come back to what we can do at the ACU, which is share approaches and learnings across countries and across institutions. So our member universities and the governments that we work with are working really collaboratively to share. If a government or a university are developing a policy around AI use, then they're sharing it with other universities so that they can learn from each other. So I think there is a desire to address this issue in a way that doesn't leave anybody behind. But I think some of this is beyond the control of what we can do at a university level or even at a kind of Commonwealth policy level. We need the technology to be fairly and equitably available to everybody.
We'll take the last question from here in the first row, if we could have someone.
Hello, Namaste. I am Balakrishna. I am a PhD scholar at the University of Hyderabad from India. See, my question is with respect to policy making. See, you're talking about universities and collaborations happening, and my question is to Beth and Nick. Probably both of you can answer. See, a lot of the chunk that goes to the state-owned universities in India is from the rural backdrop. So, what role can Commonwealth play in terms of policy making so that we are talking about bridging the gap between the education and workforce? So what role can Commonwealth play in terms of both collaborating with corporates, if that is meant to be the workforce, and simultaneously working with the governments across the globe? How can Commonwealth play a role in this regard? Because most often when people say collaborations and all, we most tend to stick to the private universities. And my question is particularly with regard to the state-owned universities. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think the question is what role can policymakers make in making education more... So it's really hard to hear, really echoey. Do you want to come and repeat the question?
I think as the speakers are facing that way, yeah. Like I was.
I got it. Yeah, technology, not always an enabler. I stole your joke, Nick, sorry. So the question was, how can we support state universities to work more with private enterprise, governments, and industry, right? And I think I think, as I've said, we see this at a local level with kind of universities have their local state partners, whether that's their local employers or the regional councils or the regional governments. And so I think anything that helps to foster that kind of collaboration is needed. Whether that's, we see it in some countries, they have civic agreements where multiple universities in a locality might set up an arrangement with the local healthcare service, with the local council, with a group of local employers, and it recognizes that within a region, these institutions, the educational, the public services, big employers, all have a role to play in that ecosystem. So you see it, and this is a UK example, but I'm a trustee of the University of Cardiff, and we really have an anchor role within the region of South Wales, and we work really closely with all of those different entities to look at what are the skills needs in a region, what are the future job trends, what are the issues that the region are facing from a research point of view that requires responding to, and how can we as institutions in our multiple different sectors work together to address those. So I think there's opportunities for those sorts of collaborative frameworks at that regional level, and then I think looking then at the kind of state and national level, it gets a bit more complicated, but that's certainly the framework is there.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll take the question from the gentleman who raised his hand on this side for twice. So.
Hello. Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Dr. Vishnu, representing Rotary Club of Malaysia and as well the Public Health of KKM. So I had 3 questions, separate questions for all the panelists, but thank you, Ms. Buttons. Initially my question was on literacy that you have answered. So my next question is for Mr. Chambers. So as I understand that you are one of the main person who in charge or handles job opportunities. Okay, I would like to represent middle and low income countries. Based on your opinion, how would you, or what is your advice on how can us from the low income country, middle income country, increase job opportunity and career development for our youths?
Yeah, you might have to come down.
Okay. Hi. Oh yeah, Dr. Vishnu here. Nice meeting you. So my question is, you, literally as a guy who gives job for everyone here, so how would you improve our youths, or not only in Malaysia, focusing on low and also middle income country, how do you improve their job opportunity and their career development?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm the job guy. Thank you. How do we help people get jobs? I think one of the most important things that we have to look at is the point I was trying to make earlier about being job ready. Malaysia is in a phenomenal place right now from a world of work perspective. If you look at the unemployment rate, if you look at the GDP, if you look at how much direct foreign investment is coming into Malaysia, it is the envy of many countries around the world. We've had some very high-profile leaders in Malaysia this week that would be very grateful to have those statistics. The challenge we have is that when we look at the job market, a lot of the movement of talent is people already in the workplace. So I know there's a lot of graduates who come onto the market and struggle to get that first opportunity. They spend a lot of time educating themselves in a subject, and then they end up having to take a job not relevant to that degree, which is a really missed opportunity and a shame. So part of it is also having really clear understanding of the types of roles that are available in Malaysia and making sure that you're readying yourself for those roles. I do believe that the internship and getting job exposure as early on as possible is a great way to get ahead of other people. You have to look at yourself as a commodity in the marketplace, and companies are out there trying to hire the very best commodity for any certain role. So how do you do that? We've just had a 19-year-old in first degree of University of UTM, I think it is, and they did a 3-week internship with us just to get exposure to working in the corporate world. So I think that the more you can ready yourself for the world of work, the better. But again, I can't overemphasize the importance of soft skills. I did a webinar only recently on the future of skills with InvestKL. We had 40 students online, and after about 3 minutes, I said, if this was an in-person training session, you couldn't sit there with a cardboard in front of your face with your initials on the screen. So why do it in a virtual world? Cameras on, be present, be where you are, try and make the most from that opportunity. Even after I said that, only 2 or 3 people turned their camera on. But those 2 or 3 people, I felt I was having an engaging conversation with. The other 37, I didn't feel connected to. So if any of those 3 subsequently reached out and said, Nick, could I come and have an internship? I'd probably say yes. For the other 37, it'd be far more challenging, if I'm honest. So putting yourself out there, having the courage to take those steps, stepping out of your comfort zone is so important.
Right. Actually, this have been, I think, a question that have been asked for all the people in terms of job opportunities, and for students, of course, when they study and then after this, am I going to get a job? So let me ask first, Who in the auditorium is from a medical background? Anyone? Medical, all right. How about accounting? Nobody? Accounting, all right. Business major? Business, all right. Hospitality, tourism? No. All right. So, as you can see, first, when you're talking about opportunity, you have to understand the market first. What are the seats available in the industry? So the main issues about solving this job opportunity problem is because the education sector and the industry don't have connections in terms of putting them in seats. So these are the main issue. So for example, there are 10,000 seats in accounting, but there are only 2,000 seats in the industry. See? So that's why the balance of the 8,000 candidates that just graduated in accounting will go to other fields to fill up the industry needs, but they are not qualified. So to solve this issue, the industry of companies and the education sector have to work together. First, to resolve the competency issue. The lecturers are from academic backgrounds. Of course, they know how to teach. But they have to be involvement from the industry itself. For example, I take my faculty as an example. We hire police officers, working police officers, to teach our students. We hire firemen to teach our students. We hire people from the government bodies to become our lecturers, so that once they graduate, they already got the knowledge from a real law enforcer to work as a law enforcer. So this gap that we have, the issue is because you have one portion, which is us, the academicians, which doesn't tally with the industry. They don't want to work together. Oh no, I want to have this and this and this. Oh no, you have to follow the rules, the books, this and this and this. So until we resolve that, the problem with job opportunities will still be there. But I believe the gap is minimizing by having the industry giving trainings during the students' internship. The industry giving trainings in terms of certifications. In IT, we have a lot of certification that is required for the students to take during their study. So this certification acknowledge to the industry whereby these students are qualified, not just because of their degree, not just because of their diplomas or master or PhD, but because of that certification. Sometimes the certification is much more valuable than the qualification itself. So this is something maybe Mr. Nick can share. Is it the case right now? Job opportunities based on skills, based on certificates rather than the qualification itself.
Yeah, I think if I look back at my university time, I 3 great years at university, ended up with a qualification, a degree. Do I use much of that degree these days? Probably not as much. But living away from home as an 18-year-old, learning independence and what have you, do I use those skills a lot more now? So the soft skills that I developed through university, the degree showed that I could put my head down and work hard for 3 years and what have you. Maybe that gives employers some confidence that if I've done it before, I can do it again. But the skills that I really learned through universities were the skills I carry forward today, and I use a lot more frequently in my everyday interactions, communication. When something goes wrong, mum and dad aren't there to help, I've got to sort myself out. So that critical thinking, and it was tough living away from home, so that builds resilience as well. So yeah, those soft skills are, I think now, for me, more valuable than the qualification. But at the time, I wouldn't have got the opportunity in the world of work had I not got the qualification. So it's equally as important at different stages of your learning journey.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you to all the panelists. With that, we come to the end of our question and answer session. I'd like to thank the audience for their enthusiastic participation. I'd also like to thank all the panelists for giving your insights today and so passionately answering the questions of the audience. Today's discussion has shown us that education does not exist in isolation. It is deeply connected with opportunity and inclusion. On behalf of the Commonwealth Asean Summit, thank you once again for joining us, and may we continue to bridge the differences between learning and leadership. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you to all the speakers and Nisha for this insightful discussion. May I now request His Excellency Danlabe Ibrahim, Charge d'Affaires of High Commission of Nigeria, and His Excellency Menzil Amina, High Commissioner of Kingdom of Eswani, along with our Project Director of Commonwealth Asean Summit, Pashminder Singh Paul, to present the tokens of appreciation to our speakers as a gesture of gratitude for their time and valuable insights today. Thank you so much, everyone. May I request all the delegates to fill the front seats first? Can you guys move to the front side, please? That side also, can you delegates move to the front side, please? Okay. Got it. So delegates can move a little bit to the center so that we take a picture of you delegates with the VIPs from this angle. So can you guys please move towards the centers? Move towards the center so that you get a picture. They're sitting there. The back panel is VIPs only. You can take the picture. Yeah. Where is the photographer? I'll photograph. Can you guys actually get a little bit closer just for the picture? Maybe you can stand up and stand on the stairs beside. You guys can stand up and come more near, come more closer. No, that's fine. Yeah, you guys can stand on the stairs. Guys, please settle down. So we now shift to a theme that influences how every system, public, private, and social evolves. That is technology. So technology today is not just a set of tools. It's the environment we work in, learn in, communicate in, and govern through. It shapes identity, power, access, opportunity, and inequality. So the question in front of us is not how fast we innovate, but how responsibility we do and who that progress includes. So for this, now I would like to invite our moderator for the technologies track, Ms. Christine. Ms. Christine is a project manager with a local investor firm. Prior to joining the private sector, she worked in international development as a monitoring and evaluation for 5 years. She has also developed and implemented gender-responsive strategies in the areas of disability inclusion. Previously, she has worked with local governments in localizing SDGs and implemented programs successfully in 7 city councils. Besides, she also is a trilingual magician with a weekend column in Silar Harian and Sinchu Daily on politics, economic, and social issues. Ms. Christine, can you please come on stage? Can we have the moderator for technology session, Ms. Christine, please come on stage? Okay, till we have the panel and the speakers coming in. Okay, we have the moderator coming. Let's welcome Ms. Christine. So for the technology session, we are joined today by 3 speakers whose work sits in the intersection of technology, governance, and social impact. First, we have Mr. Azhar Abu Talib, the CEO of My Blockchain Infrastructure. He leads Malaysia's National Blockchain Infrastructure Initiative, strengthening digital trust identity security, and technological sovereignty. His leadership bridges innovation with institutional scale implementation, shaping how nations adopt emerging technologies responsibility. Can we have Mr. Azhar on stage? Next up, we have Shri Milind Deora ji, Member of Parliament Rajya Sabha from India, a public leader with extensive experience in communications, technology, governance, and economic modernization. His work has focused on enabling digital ecosystems that drive development while ensuring access, accountability, and transparency. Next up, we have Mr. Mohammad Kaushad Alam Khazdir, former ambassador designate of Bangladesh to Poland and researcher in AI and digital sovereignty. With a career in diplomacy and now research, he examines how states, institutions, and big tech negotiate authority in the digital age. You can proceed with the discussion. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for the introduction by the Master of Ceremony. I'm Christine here, and I see all my panelists here on stage today. So we have people from the public sector. We also have former diplomat and currently a PhD researcher, and also, of course, a former minister and also member of parliament from India right here. So we have quite a diverse mix of crowd, which are going to give us more insights into harnessing digital transformation for equitable progress. So before I begin, I'm going to ask each of you to do a quick introduction on what you currently do.
Hi, good morning. My name is Khurshid Khastogir. I'm a Bangladeshi diplomat. I served for 24 years. Last mission was in Malaysia as a Deputy High Commissioner. Currently, I am doing PhD in Artificial Intelligence, Digital Sovereignty, and Big Tech State Relations.
Very good morning. My name is Milind Deora. I am a member of parliament from the upper house of India's parliament. I represent Mumbai, which, as you are probably aware, is the commercial, cultural capital of the country. And as Christine pointed out, I have been a minister in the government of India. I had the privilege of being a minister for communications, telecommunications, IT, shipping. And I also chair a parliamentary committee on subordinate legislation. And if I may take your permission, Christine, I would like to thank my friends Kishwa and Sumed for having me here at the Commonwealth Asean Summit today. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. My name is Azhar bin Abu Talib. I'm the CEO of My Blockchain Infrastructure. We are basically a subsidiary of Mimos Berhad, an agency under the Ministry of Science and Technology in Malaysia. So we do a lot of work on blockchain because why? Because Malaysian government team today is basically two. One is AI, the other one is digital asset. So just to be clear, I don't do crypto. So crypto in Malaysia is covered under the Security Commission and also the central bank. We do blockchain technology other than crypto, just to make it clear. So you can ask me questions about crypto, but I will try to answer as best as my possible can.
So thank you to our panelists for the round of introduction. So we'll begin by, today we are in the ASEAN Summit. So I'm going to ask you about something that's more related to the ASEAN diverse landscape. So we are very different in language, very different in culture, and also even the urban and rural divide all across. And I guess that's probably the same even from Bangladesh and from the India experience. So how, with this technological advancement, how do we ensure that the rapid advancement doesn't deepen the divide, and how can it actually create more shared prosperity? How do you create more shared prosperity?
So, India's actually story in the technology as a public good space, I think has been pretty remarkable. Just to throw up a few statistics and figures, and that's also largely due to the size of our nation, the fact that we're the most populous country in the world, we have 1.4 billion people. A few years ago, we created it's the world's largest payment interface system, which is now not just being used by 400 million Indians, but it's being exported to many parts of the world. It's called UPI, which is called Unified Payment Interface. And there was an argument, actually, Christine, in our country, a political debate even, that a platform like this would actually exclude people rather than bringing more people into the mainstream. Today, I'm proud to say that the UPI is being used on a daily basis by over 400 million Indians. And every month, UPI is registering over 10 billion, I repeat, 10 billion with a B, 10 billion transactions every month, valued at over $240 billion. I can give many examples of that where we've used technology to actually reduce the digital divide, even to do away with economic inequalities. When I was a minister in the government of India and looking at the Ministry of Technology and IT, Technology and Telecommunications, we had a program called the National E-Governance Mission. It's now rolled up into a larger program called Digital India. And the aim of that program was, how do we use technology to enable the government to provide services to the citizen while reducing the interface between the citizen and the government. What that does is improves efficiency, reduces potential corruption. A very good example of that is our election system. We have the largest elections in the world because we are the largest democracy in the world. All 650 million Indians who are eligible to vote and go out and cast their vote in a general elections. Last general election last year, 650 million Indians went out and cast their vote. And each and every one of those voters voted on an electric voting machine. So that's the scale of which we're using technology to actually provide this public good. We have a system called Aadhaar, which is the world's largest biometric link system. Every Indian has an Aadhaar unique card, a unique identification number. And we use that to also distribute benefits. So if the government, whether it's the state governments or the central government, want to provide some support, financial support, to a farmer, to someone from a backward district of the country, we use that platform. And today, every year, all governments put together in India are distributing about $85 billion worth of benefits through that program. So our focus has always been not just innovation for the sake of innovation, not just developing indigenous technologies for the sake of developing them, but if they serve a larger public good. And even since my co-panelists talked about artificial intelligence and blockchain, even our push towards artificial intelligence, the government has earmarked about $1.5 billion to buy GPUs. We are building our own stacks, our own AI models. And largely, the idea of doing that is to make it open interface, to allow us to develop language models, because we have a lot of languages in India, but also to allow countries from ASEAN to use those models, other countries in South Asia perhaps, to use our model to actually develop these AI platforms for healthcare, education, languages. So we really don't want to be just a country that innovates and develops technologies for public good of India, but for the region, for ASEAN, for South Asia and the world.
Thank you, Milin. So before we get to Mr. Khurshid, maybe let's hear from the Malaysian perspective first. So Mr. Azhar, you work in blockchain, and that's like a very far-fetched term for the average Malaysian. I'm sure if you go to the villages or what we call kampongs here, how do you use blockchain in these areas, and how can these people access blockchain?
We're still talking about equity. Am I correct? We're still talking about equity, or just blockchain in general and how it actually helps. So let me explain a little bit, because why use cases is the easiest to use as an example, where examples from other countries that really help. I give you an example. Yesterday I was at a Bloomberg session together with another panelist who's actually from Philippines. So what has happened in Philippines, right? And then this is recently, this is this year. What has happened in Philippines, there's flood happening right now. So monsoon season, you know, there's a lot of rain and all that, so flood happening and all that. So then there was supposed to be a government disbursement for subsidies and flood mitigation projects in Philippines. But what happened? So the joke around Philippines is, even though there's no Halloween has not arrived yet at that point, but there's a lot of ghosts in the Philippines because the money that somehow gets siphoned out by the ghosts happening in Philippines. So what did the government decided to do? This is Philippine government. So they decided to implement all projects from budgeting to the actual contract award and all that using blockchain publicly, which means that the public can see from budgeting perspective to the issuance of the contract to the progress of the actual work on a public chain which is publicly viewable. So this is where equity comes. Because, see, I give you an example, right? What India has built. I think our colleagues here mentioned about Aadhaar and UPI and all that. We get partners who actually coming from India, propose that using similar method, Aadhaar and all that. So that's where we have My Digital ID. So it's not just your normal Wi-Fi infrastructure devices and all that. What they have built is a digital public infrastructure. How do you get actual funds right to the actual individuals? So because why? In order to get the fund go right across to the correct individual, to the correct organization, you need a public infrastructure. What do you need? You need a way from online so that you know I can disburse this fund correctly. That's where you have your eKYC and all that, so that you know who you're dispersing it to. And from there, you need payments. So they have UPI. Here in Malaysia and around this region, we have, especially in ASEAN, we have an agreement how we do payment online with certain guardrails and all that. That's how we have our duit now can actually be used in Cambodia, even in China. Today, you can use touch and go and make QR payment if you're traveling in China. Previously, you cannot. The same way that Alibaba over there, you can use their Alibaba WeChat app or whatever it is. When you arrive here in Malaysia, you can actually make payments using the QR code and WeChat, with WeChat app and all that, and using the ecosystem that has been established. So you don't just need and infrastructure connectivity and devices, but you need a whole public infrastructure to enable the community. Because without that, then the community does not have access to the services. So this is some of the things, and a lot of these things together here in Malaysia, what we're trying to do is anchor those transactions and those credentials on a chain. That's where we're hoping where the government will go next, so that all your transaction can be, if you want it to be transparent and immutable, you cannot dispute it, the government cannot dispute it. That's the most important thing.
Yes, Mr. Khorshid. So I think Malaysia has the most amount of migrant workers from Bangladesh. And since the conversation is now on the payment interface, can you explain a bit more on how Digital Bangladesh actually involves the migrant workers overseas and how digital payments are now being made back to the home country?
Thank you. I joined the Bangladesh High Commission in 2020 as the Deputy High Commissioner. And on arrival, we all know in 2020, COVID was a kind of a restrained the movement control order, etc. So people actually could not travel to the High Commission in Kuala Lumpur. So what we did, we actually made a partnership with the Post Malaysia and having a digital tracking system, that passport will be delivered on a tracked mode through the post office. Then we actually got our existing Facebook page, which was having some 70,000 followers, but without verification. And there was lots of other people using Facebook and trying to fake that they are providing services and actually cheating our people. So we then tried to increase its following, and we made it verified and the authentic information, that misinformation and disinformation were not there. So people actually trusted. Technology, we use the technology to have a trusted communication channel. And when it comes to the remittance, there are remittance houses, and there are few Bangladeshi, but also Malaysian, they are doing it. Although Bangladesh is having this digital 2041, I mean the digital Bangladesh, we built our digital infrastructure for payment system like RTGS, real-time gross payment system, and other payment system. Using those systems, there are mobile apps they actually can use. So people can use it from outside as well. And the telecom network in Bangladesh is connected to those apps, and those who are sending money, they actually can get the money immediately transferred to their relatives or to their near and dears. In terms of, if I go for a general comment on technology, if you allow me, technology is generally considered as an enabler. But nowadays, technology is no longer enabler. Technology is power. Technology has created a new terrain of power. Think about Facebook. A platform, social media platform, can actually influence elections, change government, can create the Gen Z movements following powerful government like 15 years Sheikh Hasina government in Bangladesh. So this is immense power in the people's hand. On the reverse way, how the government actually can use these platforms to give services or jobs opportunity, that requires government investment in the public digital infrastructure, and also creating capabilities that people are not only getting access to a mobile or a computer or a laptop, they're actually getting proper training, and those trainings are being utilized in a meaningful way by the industry and also by themselves being entrepreneur. I mean, now we hear in the age of AI, a single person can be unicorn. I mean, this is a new hypothesis. There's a single person using AI agent can be a billionaire. So these are huge opportunities, prospect, but with a lot of challenges. That how we manage the power of artificial intelligence that is created in the West, not enough bias removed for the global South. India is a big tech country having a lot of global leadership from India, and it is building its own infrastructure. Singapore is doing one, Sea Lion, Southeast Asia languages in one network, meaning this is an open source model they're using to remove the bias, the cultural and linguistic bias of West. From my PhD, I'm actually partnering with AI Singapore for Bangladesh, how we can use it for 300 million people, 6th largest speaking community, and that they have their own sovereignty, bias removed LLM model, and that also can be used for the government and for other purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Korshed. So I think one thing that I've gathered from all the panelists is that we want AI to be able to reach the mass. It needs to go out to a large population. And this is often what governments have celebrated as well. But the question is, has this truly translated into financial inclusion? And I'm talking specifically about, for example, senior citizens. We know that adoption of a technology takes time. It takes time, especially for seniors, to get used into a new habit. Or is this just a process of digitizing the existing inequalities? Then how do you actually ensure that, oh yes, everyone is included? I'm open for anyone to take this question.
I'll try to. You know, look, when you build these services, I can share the Indian model. What we did, again, very successfully, was we put the infrastructure in place first. What does the infrastructure mean? The infrastructure really means how do you ensure that each and every citizen has access to a smartphone. Today in a country of 1.4 billion people, 1.1 billion Indians have a smartphone. We have 930 million 4G users, about 100 million 5G users, which are growing. So the first part that any country has to focus on, Christine, is building the last mile infrastructure, giving the citizen a device to access internet, giving them high-speed internet. The second aspect, which is a very integral layer, is how do you have a policy and a framework that protects data? So while you talk about, whether you talk about AI, whether you talk about blockchain, whether you talk about e-governance, so we have now, for instance, taken several years, and we finally, our parliament has finally enacted one of the most robust data protection legislations, I would say, globally. And we've taken many factors into consideration when we drafted that legislation. The most critical is that we live in a neighborhood, India, where we have certain neighbors that might be hostile towards us. And because of that, the government has to obviously protect its citizens. We have to protect our citizens against terror attacks. We have to protect our citizens with regards to national security. So keeping that national security element in mind, how do we also ensure that the right to privacy, the citizens' data, is protected, especially when it comes to sovereign data? And we looked at the data protection acts of several countries, including one of the most robust regions in the world, which is the European Union. They have a legislation called the GDPR, where you have the right to be forgotten. A citizen in the European Union has the right to be forgotten. They can demand that a company like Google erase their presence online. They want to be incognito. They want to go off the grid. We have enabled our citizens to have that right with this legislation. So we've done a very good job, I would say, when it comes to the actual practical use, to monitor, to ensure that we protect ourselves against cyber attacks, to ensure that the government has the capabilities to be involved in, say, surveillance against terror groups, but yet to protect the privacy and sovereignty of our citizens and their data. Similarly, we've done a good job of ensuring that there's infrastructure in the public domain. Each and every citizen, as I said, has access to a smartphone, to 4G internet connectivity, but yet the layer on top of that, whether it's the software, whether it's the services, whether it's the privacy, ensures that the best quality in the world. So those are the things to think about. Then on top of that, whether you want to add a blockchain layer, you want to add an AI layer, it becomes very easy for a country to do that. If you don't fix those two issues simultaneously, then you can have a situation where you actually have inequalities and you have a massive digital divide. And I'll give you an example of developed countries. Today in the United States, or even in a country like Australia, large parts of their rural communities have little or no access to the internet. In America, for instance, and in Australia, they are now in the process of, the government is in the process now of funding a fiber optic backbone to reach rural areas, the outback in Australia, which will give citizens access to high-speed internet connectivity, broadband internet. We conceived that about 15 years ago. We implemented that about 7 or 8 years ago. So often what happens in this situation for any country in the world, especially emerging markets and countries that are developing their digital infrastructure, is you put the cart before the horse. And it's very important that the hardware and software infrastructure has to precede the services you're going to offer. If you do it the other way around, you'll have a serious problem.
Can I add that a little bit? So, can I have a show of hands? How many of you guys here uses ChatGPT or DeepSeek and all that? So, ChatGPT. So, almost all of you uses ChatGPT and all that. So, how many of you uses paid ChatGPT? Can I have show of hands? So at least you guys who are actually paid, you are protected a little bit. So we're talking about making money using AI and all that. ChatGPT is actually making money out of what you're typing today if you actually not subscribe. So which means their policy, have you heard their legal terms and all that? If you use the free ChatGPT today, whatever you type in, your PDF uploads and all that, they can make money out of it. So today, people are making money out of your data. So as an example, if I want to train my AI engine, what do I need? The most important thing, your data, whatever data that is available out there, right? So they're making money out of your data. So what's the guardrail? We have no protection in terms of those guys who's actually producing that data set to be used in AI, and figure out how those people who create those content to make money out of it. That's why you have New York Times and OpenAI currently having a legal lawsuit. So so this is my promotion, blockchain comes into the picture and all that. So there's an entity called Ocean. They developed something called an Ocean protocol. This exists today. So what do? So the idea is using a blockchain where when you want to actually share your data for trading purposes, you can actually have it anchored on a chain, and the AI company who wishes to access those data sets are given the credit to access those data sets on the chain as well. So then you get paid when those companies access your data sets for training purposes. That's one thing. Because why? Intrinsic knowledge, say for example, we're talking about farmers and all that. They have the intrinsic knowledge about the insects, the growth of the trees and all that, what kind of best conditions to actually grow a tree. So they have this data set. When they start documenting data, this particular data sets and all that, AI company uses that and train them, right, to check for insecticides on diseases, whatever it is and all that. But they have no way to monetize it. This is where the use of technology is key, and for government especially to know that there are technologies out there that can protect, because why? They say data is the future oil, right? So protect your own data sets. That's where sovereignty is key. So I believe it's a start for government to really consider not just individual privacy data, but those data that actually create real content. That's the most important thing. That's where AI company really wishes to actually get their hands into.
Okay, so Mr. Asasis, we are on this topic of security, and you are in the national blockchain infrastructure, right? So how can blockchain actually enhance the security and traceability of all the digital payments that you have said earlier? Like, for example, using my Touch and Go to make a purchase in China and to get the goods delivered to my doorstep.
This is other than crypto, right? So for blockchain, there's 3 teams, at least for Malaysia blockchain infrastructure, we have 3 teams in order to create a digital trusted fabric. That's what we call it. So you have the digital public infrastructure, but you need to create a trust within those infrastructure. So that's where you have blockchain with the power of immutability and other protocols that's built within the blockchain ecosystem through smart contracts and all that. So then you can have things like trusted credential. Trusted credential, what does it mean? It means that if I issue you a credential, whether it's a driving license, your national ID, your birth certificate, any types of line titles, ownership and all that, I know the issuing agency is a correct issuing agency from government agencies and all that. And I know, and the verifiers know that the owner is actually you, right? And this is where it gets important. You have it, those data on your phone. Nobody else has it, except for the government, obviously. And when it comes to sharing, you decide whether you want to share those data. This is important because why? We live in the digital world. So some government, I do believe, say for example, even in Singapore and all that, the way it works is the government, so you giving the government the rights, but the government still says, do you wish to share this? Which is slightly different. The ownership is still the government, right? But in this case, there are technology that exists out there where the rights is in your own control. So you decide what you want to share. So in this case, for example, government of Malaysia decided to actually, well, maybe they are mulling the ideas and all that, have control a little bit about social media access. So we hear about, say, for example, within certain age limit, only then you have a social media access and all that. So the companies do not need, so social media companies do not need your actual birth of date, what your gender is, what your food preference is and all that. They just need to know whether you're above 16, for example. That's the only thing they need to know. So with certain technology anchored on a blockchain, these are the things that you can give them. I give you only my age, but not the rest. That's where privacy comes into the picture with some technology anchored using a chain. And there's other things, transaction, secure transaction, trusted data. We're talking about data just now, sharing with the AI companies and how to protect those data. So those are the things that can be done using a chain infrastructure, but we still a long way to go there.
Okay, so we are talking about the trust in using digital payments, right? And also the trust in the government in owning your data. So next question for Mr. Khorshid. So Bangladesh has seen tremendous growth in their mobile financial services, like bKash, right? Maybe you can give us some insights. How do you get citizens, especially low-income groups and also rural groups, to adopt this trust with the government?
the mobile financial services. For the mobile financial services, one of the primary element is KYC or eKYC, they call it, that individual actually can have an ID and they can access. In terms of the adoption, I would say mobile financial services is very popular in terms of the penetration, and more than trillion Bangladeshi taka transaction every month. And the adoption is easy because internet penetration is also very, I would say most of the country is now under the coverage of internet, 4G. 5G has been rolled out in a limited way in some big cities. And recently, Starlink actually started providing services in some of the remote areas. Bangladesh is one of the early countries having the Starlink services now enabled. So with that infrastructure and the people's having access to internet, smartphone, the Honorable MP mentioned about almost more than 1 billion in India. In Bangladesh, with 170 million people, having 140 million kind of user of the mobile subscription. One of the Malaysian company is a major provider, the Axiata, having more than 55 million subscribers. So with this infrastructure and this mobile financial services, actually it is available even in the small retail shops up to the village. And one particular NGO, I would say, BRAC, which is the largest international NGO, having other services in the, how to give access to health, education, or other training services to people. They have countrywide network. And this Bikash is actually owned by that particular group of entities. BRAC Bank, another bank having small and medium enterprise services. So they actually combine their network to bring people into the services. So having an NGO like BRAC was kind of a blessing that these mobile financial services reached up to the village, rural level.
Okay, thank you. And since all our panelists today are either in the public sector or was in the public sector, so my next question has always been on how fast can government adapt themselves with the evolving technology? We often hear that there will be a new technology coming in, but oftentimes the government will say, wait, let me see first what other countries is doing, and then we copy their regulations, and then we see how we retrofit it into our current system. So maybe we can start with Mr. Milin. As a current policy maker, how can you future-proof laws for technologies with all the rapid advancement and make sure that you can also adapt as fast as you can?
It's a good question. I don't think you can future-proof a country from disruptions and innovations. And I don't think any country in the world or any regulator in those countries can actually predict what will happen 5 years, 10 years down the line. And a good example of that is actually, if you look at crypto. When cryptocurrencies came about, the world largely was divided in terms of how should countries look at cryptos. Now Malaysia, I'm told, cryptocurrency, crypto trading is allowed, it's permissible, it's regulated. Many countries around the world, including my own, have taken a very conservative view on crypto. So, you know, the job of a government and of a government regulator, especially in the tech space, and the tech space has become very large now because the tech space applies to fintech. That means financial regulators have to be one step ahead of innovators. The healthcare regulators have to be one step ahead of innovators. So ultimately, these innovations are really coming in from the private sector. To some degree, innovations come from defense. But what a young person is doing in his or her garage somewhere in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, in Mumbai, in Bengaluru, or in Silicon Valley, or in China, nobody can predict. So I think the only thing you have to do is really adapt very, very quickly. We weren't the first, for instance, Christine, to move towards e-governance. We weren't the first. But we moved very quickly, very rapidly. So in this space, you have to really keep your eyes and ears open. You have to watch very carefully. And the minute you see something that's disruptive, but that's beneficial for your society, for the young people, the government, the regulator has to respond very quickly.
Yeah, responding to the how to actually enable or regulate, if you may. Just I ask them, there was discussion in terms of use of artificial intelligence in education. We see a certain how it can help. But if I ask one question, a student is allowed to use AI in writing essay, and how we actually, whether the university or the schools are allowing it. Question is, are we going to police and judge whether an essay is written using AI, or we allow AI to be used, but we change the evaluation model? Because generally 60 to 70% is based on the written essay and 30% on others. What if we just reverse it? Only 20-30%. Whoever wants to use AI, they can use, but they will have to explain in the class. If then we have to take a different approach, that how we evaluate students in the class. And for that, the schools, universities will have to take a different preparation. Likewise, the use of AI or any other technology in government office, data protection, responsibility. So responsibility comes with certain user benefit. I'll be responsible if I get benefits. So government needs to communicate properly that using certain technology, they don't do harm to the state or to the society, but they get rather benefits. So that's how a participatory process, that the stakeholder consultation will be needed, that how we adopt, say for example, AI, open innovation or closed. We know three models currently are prominent. Chinese, state-controlled. European Union, right-based, GDPR. US, it's open. You do whatever you can. India, Singapore and other countries are actually following the European model. So it's a balance that how you do it. Facebook is not allowed in China, but Bangladesh, even India, could not get something alternative. China could. So it depends on the political authority, their willingness to make available the technology. If you cannot make a technology available, you can regulate responsibly. Thank you.
Let me try to answer a little bit the question, but at the end, I'll try to urge you youngsters here a little bit. So we live in a civil society, and with that, we kind of throw away our rights a little bit by appointing a government, right? And the government has to be responsible. That's the nature of being government. So if you expect the government to be the frontier of every new technology, the answer will be no. Because why? The government has to act responsibly. So with that, that's why you see adoption of technology in government is slightly slow in the uptake of new technology and all that. Obviously, it differs between government to government, but generally it's there. But that's where community happens. And you, the youngsters here, are a community. Let me share a little bit about Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it has no value. But where does it gain value? Because why? Within the community, there's a few people who decided, hey, I want to actually sell my pieces of pizza, 2 slices of pizza, for a few Bitcoins. Within that community, suddenly people realize, hey, I have this something called a Bitcoin, digital money and all that, but I can trade it for something else. From that onset, you have Bitcoin today as the gold standard for all crypto investments. So they are like gold for all the crypto investment in the world. So, but this arises within the community. So that's where I will say, I urge you as a community, as a youngsters, don't just rely on the government. Within your community, create that new digital technology innovation so that you can rise. That's how technology works. That's how Napster came into the picture and all that, changed the whole media industry. It does not start from us. It starts from you guys.
Okay, that was a very interesting discussion. And right now we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. And since Mr. Azhar has put forth to the audience a challenge, can I ask who has any questions for any of our panelists on stage? The gentleman on the right side first. Maybe you can come forward. Can you please introduce yourself? Let's start with Mr. Azhar, and then we can move along.
I think it's correct in a sense that, because it's still new, first you have the evolution of big data where data is the primary driver of certain analytics and all that. Now you have AI. But in the sense of sharing those data for, in this case, AI or analytics in the future, I agree. You need to have, government need to have some sort of policy to protect those data if it's generated within the country. And later on, because it gets complicated, because why? Because storage of data today are not necessarily be in your country's domain. So later on, like today, I had a discussion, Mr. Koshit just now, he mentions about the role of embassies, diplomats, and all that. And maybe we need to have a digital diplomats later on, because from there, you need to actually negotiate first the digital boundaries and what can or cannot be done within those digital boundaries, because your citizen now actually having data sets not necessarily be available in your own country. So these are the challenges, and they need to be a common understanding. Maybe it is a start between the ASEAN and the Commonwealth countries. I'm not sure.
Very briefly, to answer your question, I don't think any consumer in the world, whether you're from India or from Malaysia, and you download an app or you're using a service, and you have that long fine print, the first reaction of the consumer is, when given an option, accept or decline, you press accept. So I don't think the onus should be on the individual user to be literate, aware, to go through that. The onus has to move to the companies from the government based on regulation. So that's the global model. The region that has done that very well is the European Union. We in India are trying to emulate that model with our data protection law, where the pressure remains on the large tech companies that are providing you those services and those apps to ensure that whether the consumer has read the fine print or not, you adhere to certain norms that protect the privacy.
May I briefly just touch on? There is an American saying, there is no free lunch. All the products are coming from America, primarily, and we are all using it free. Email, Google, etc., Facebook. So there is always something attached. Strings are attached. Now we are actually immersed into the technology. We cannot think of a day without using technology. So the literacy actually should start from the very childhood, from family to primary school to high school, from everywhere. And we will have to responsible ourselves that what we are using, if we are using free, there is a cost. We don't know. There is always a cost.
Okay, thank you. And we have a gentleman in the center stage. Please introduce yourself. And you can also name the panel who you want to answer your question.
Good afternoon. My name is Yasho Arman Singh Chandel. I hail from Mahoba district in Uttar Pradesh of India. I practice before the Honorable Supreme Court. My question is to the entire panel. There's a phenomena which has come to light which is called the technological obsolescence, in which an electronic device on purpose by the OEMs is made in a way that the recent software updates that are installed inside a specific electronic device, it slows the operational efficiency of that mobile phone. So basically when we talk about iPhones, we see that after every iOS we install on a predated model, the phone's efficiency deteriorates. So my question because there are legislators on the panel as well as members of foreign policy, is there a certain framework which is being decided to counter this technological obsolescence, because it is a valid point under consumer protection law as well as it is ethically incorrect? Thank you.
I have to admit, I don't know too much about it, but what I do know is that when I was union minister, one of the things we tried to do to make people more aware and regulate spaces better, each mobile phone has something called an SAR value, which is called the specific absorption rate. If you hold a mobile phone for very long close to your ear and to your head, it could have detrimental consequences in terms of your health. And the WHO has certain guidelines for what these norms should be. It also has norms, for instance, for the towers that your phone communicates with. How much radiation should be permitted that a human brain can absorb. And different regions have different levels based on body mass indexes, etc. So we created a regulation back in the day which ensured that a mobile phone, at least in India, whether it's imported from China, whether it's branded, unbranded, has to comply, has to, hello, yeah. It has to inform the user, the consumer about that. So it's very easy to do these things. It's not hard to do that. If tomorrow the software updates are draining the battery and pushing the consumer to buy more phones, there are ways to regulate that.
Briefly, I would touch on this from a different angle. Like data protection law, as Honorable MP mentioned, cloud. We are storing our data in the cloud. It could be government data, it could be a diplomatic mission, or it could be individuals. Recent American Cloud Act actually empowers the government agency to ask for certain data. If there is some illegal activity, they can actually ask for it. So that actually raises serious concern that how a foreign government data can be actually invoked. So there are discussions happening at the UN that how this big tech, who actually providing the digital space, we know sovereignty. Government is actually maintaining sovereignty with diplomats, military, border force, etc. But in the digital space, we also need to look into that seriously. So Microsoft lately came up with sovereign cloud. So giving certain empowerment to the government, that government will have certain say that the data will be inside the country, or data will be in a way government can have a check and balance. So these things are evolving, and the state needs more discussion how to do that at the global level. At the UN level, there is a body, UN Advisory Body on AI, and they are trying to propose certain guideline. I think this will take time, but it's happening.
Okay, thank you. We can take one last question from the audience. Yes, our lady in black. Remember to introduce yourself. Thank you.
I'm Tanushka. I'm from India and I'm a lawyer. My question is that with the era of great technology comes greater risk. There's data theft, cyber breaches, and even national security threats. There are even allegations on the governments for selling private data. So what steps can be taken to harmonize data protection and cybersecurity laws across India as well as across all of South Asia? Thank you.
Actually, I don't know, maybe you got in a little late, but I had already spoken about that, the balance between cyber security, the need for surveillance, and protecting digital privacy, especially of individuals. So, I mean, the India context, we have now a data protection law. It's a pretty robust law. You may be aware it took us many years to enact that legislation. We studied many countries. So you as an Indian citizen now, like a European Union citizen, have the right to be forgotten on the internet, which is a very powerful right to have, and it's, in my opinion, an inalienable right that every citizen should have in the digital age. We're also in the process of setting up a data protection board where complaints can be registered and speedy resolutions can be delivered. So I think every country, as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, that, you know, while we talk about creating infrastructure, we talk about giving each and every individual a smartphone, an internet connection, the right services, the right AI models, the right software. How do you really create that overarching legislative framework that protects data is very, very critical. Today, my colleague talked about how data is being used by companies to monetize people's data. Now, in my country, we are going to become the largest data producers, consumers in the world. We're going to exceed China in the years to come. So, you know, the government is thinking about that, but there will be certain disruptions and innovations. And it's not always the case that the regulator is ahead of the innovator. So we have to keep an eye on what the innovator is doing, and we have to ensure that our data is harnessed in the right way, because this is our strategic asset. It's like a country that produces oil. So that is our strategic asset. How do we leverage that asset? Geopolitically, diplomatically, how do we leverage that asset economically while ensuring that the citizen is protected? That's very, very critical.
I just want to add briefly. I mentioned about sovereign data, sovereign cloud. But like Indian Data Protection Act, there is a requirement that you have to have the data center inside the country. As you mentioned, South Asia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal might not be in a feasible to have a data center. Then that country will have to trust the neighboring country or a friendly country. Like in the ASEAN, there are a lot of data centers in Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, elsewhere. So ASEAN has that framework. South Asia can have similar framework. India can provide, having the advantage of technology and the capability and the scale, that kind of support for the other South Asian countries. Thank you.
I'll refine your question that is a little bit interesting for the policymakers. So rather than talking about just data itself, why don't we talk about the algorithm itself, in this case, AI algorithm. As AI moves towards critical industry that's making decision automatically on behalf, either for organization, for individual. I gave an example, say, in the medical arena, in financial arena, where you want to say, AI, please do all this for me and all that, right? Automatically. So where's the guardrail for that? Because AI does hallucinate, right? So the question is, what's the guardrail that's protecting you when you use AI, especially in the critical industries, right? When the algorithm itself might not be consistent, which means even though 90% most of the time it will produce the expected result, maybe around 10% it might not be. So the question is, if it goes to court, how does it hold on to those kind of behavior expected from the machines? That might be much more interesting. But anyway, I'm not going to answer that. I just leave it as a question.
Okay, so one last question from me before we wrap up today's session. And this time I'm going to ask it from your own personal opinion. So if you could make one intervention today in the space of technology, AI, and be it whether policy, partnership, or technology, what would you do to make AI and technology more inclusive for all?
I mean, the honest answer would be that as a politician, as a member of parliament, how do you give the government a seat on the table to know when technologies are emerging? That to me is the most critical element. How do you make the government more proactive, and any government? I don't think the best government in the world can be proactive unless they have a seat on the table with the entrepreneurs and the innovators. So that would be an area to me which would be relevant. A government to industry interface where they're working in unison, and the minute something's coming up which is going to actually make technology very exclusive and only for a select few and not reach to the people it's intended to benefit, that's where the government has to intervene. But if it happens at an early stage, it's far easier.
For me, it's not just about AI, it's about any technology. So to be inclusive, it's a little bit hard in a sense because there is a generational gap. I'm not born into the AI native era. You guys probably are, my children probably is, and all that, right? So they are AI native. You already use AI in whatever you do from schools and all that. So in order to bridge the gap, government can only mediate and enable, but what needs to be driven is by the community themselves. I believe in community. So as the community grows, as you grow and your parents get older, use the technology from the community, right? As you have more knowledge, you are born into that era, and bridge that gap with with whoever that is actually one generation further than you. From within that, then it can only be inclusive. My dad was not born into the era of computers and all that, right? So, but today, he's 80 plus and all that, he's well equipped. He does his tax by himself and all that online. But what makes him transition? Because we bridge that gap. He used a typewriter before, then we use, typewriter is so old school and all that. I'll give you a computer, right? Then suddenly you have inclusivity. It's driven not by the government, but by the community.
As I am a civil servant, as a diplomat, part of the civil service, Honorable MP actually do the legislation and we provide input. Currently, I am actually trying to build a policy studio using AI that will be a platform that it can give access to the people's participation for a participatory policy making. Because if you do not participate in a process, you don't own it. So when you have an option to participate, I mean, a platform can take million, billion input and then can process it. So we are trying to, I'm having a partnership with one tech company that how we can build a policy studio online that can be used to take people's input. People will participate and they will feel included. Thank you.
Thank you to all our distinguished panelists for today's session. I think it was very exciting. Don't you think so? Yes? Okay, so can we all please give our panelists a big round of applause? All right, so thank you very much to all our panelists, and I will hand it back to our MC of the day.
So thank you, Ms. Christine, and all our distinguished speakers for this insightful session. May I now request Kabilan, Country Malaysia Head, to please come forward, Country Malaysia Head of the Commonwealth Innovation Hub, to please come forward and kindly present the tokens of appreciation to our speakers as a gesture of the gratitude of their time. Thank you so much. So we can proceed for lunch. Lunch arrangements have been made in the holding room. If the spaces in holding room has been filled, you guys can take your plates, come here and sit and have lunch. Just also remember one thing, there are a few tables who are reserved. Please do not occupy those tables. You need to be back by 1:55 so that we proceed for the next session. Thank you.